Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. So in this video I'm going to be reviewing The Last of Us 2. It will contain spoilers as well, so if you don't want to see any spoilers then turn away now. I will try to keep the video short as well. However, if it runs a bit longer then I apologise. I'll give a quick summary of the game as a refresher and then I'll get into the review. So The Last of Us Part 2 is a sequel to the first game, which was released in 2013 by Naughty Dog. It is a third-person stealth survival horror game which is set in post-apocalyptic America. So it involves the outbreak of a fungi called Cordyceps which has infected most of humanity. So that's the backdrop to the story. The story of Last of Us 2 involves loss, revenge and forgiveness. This is established early on with Joel's brutal death at the hands of Abby and her crew, while Ellie herself is spared from death. This starts off Ellie's arc as she goes about scouring Seattle for Abby's whereabouts. Along the way she discovers Abby and her crew are part of a new faction called WLF. They are run by an unforgiving leader named Isaac. It's important to note that WLF have absorbed a number of Fireflies. These happen to include Abby and Owen. And as we learn while playing through Abby's story, one of the doctors that was meant to perform on Ellie in the first game that Joel killed is actually Abby's dad. This sets off Abby's revenge arc. During the start of Ellie's story you're accompanied by Dina. Dina also happens to be Ellie's love interest. However, this is cut short upon learning that Dina is actually pregnant. So during Ellie's search of Seattle for Abby and her crew members, she ends up killing a lot of Abby's crews. She does not, however, find Abby herself. It's only due to chance that Ellie left her map behind, and it's this that gives Abby the chance to sneak up on Ellie. It's important to note that the majority of Abby's friends are now dead at the hands of Ellie, Tommy, who is also present and seeking revenge, Jesse and Dina. Upon confronting Ellie, Jesse is shot through the face with an arrow and dies. Tommy is then knocked to the ground. Then starts Abby's playthrough. Here we get to explore her father's death at the hands of Joel, beginnings of her loss and revenge arc. So during Abby's playthrough we get to explore her relationship with Owen, who is Abby's love interest, one who Abby's father approved of before his death. We are also shown Abby's rocky relationship with Mel. This is due to Owen's relationship with Mel, a romantic one that spawned after the death of Abby's dad. This was as Abby grew colder to Owen, as she became more consumed with loss and her desire for revenge. There are a few other characters that are present in Abby's life, however their roles are minimum. Now during Abby's playthrough we get a few flashbacks. One such flashback is the time Owen took Abby to an aquarium, to which he refers to as a zoo for fish. This actually sets up a separate base of operations for Owen, one away from their WLF headquarters, to which only Abby and Mel are privy to. This scene was mirrored in Ellie's playthrough when Joel takes Ellie to a dinosaur museum for her birthday. There are a few other flashback sequences that mirrors in both Ellie's and Abby's playthrough. These include scenes with the father, or in Ellie's case, Joel. Now during Abby's playthrough, at one point you have to go and collect Owen, while he is hiding out at the aquarium. However, this is done against the orders of Isaac, the leader of the WLF. A quick note that WLF stands for Washington Liberation Front, however they are simply referred to as the Wolf. This is due to having adopted the wolf's head as an avatar. This is found graffitied across Seattle. Before Abby leaves for Owen, we are briefly introduced to Isaac, who has just finished torturing a prisoner. This was to extract information about another group called the Seraphites. Now the Seraphites, also known as the Scars, are a primitive cult. They are the main enemy of the Washington Liberation Front. The Seraphites, or the Scars, follow a religious fanatic lady who considers herself the prophet of mankind. Now the Seraphites have about 1,000 strong members. However, their style of attack is more melee weapons. Now the Scars and the WLF have been at war on and off since their inception. And on the night that Abby is sneaking out is the day before the WLF have planned a surprise attack on the Seraphites island. On Abby's journey she is briefly taken hostage. It is at this point she is introduced to two Seraphites named Yara and Lev, who she befriends through saving, one of whom stays with her till after the game. So she travels to the aquarium to find Owen. Owen however doesn't want to leave. This is as Owen has heard the Fireflies are regrouping in Santa Barbara. Abby then, not supportive of Owen's idea, goes to look for Yara and Lev. Yara having sustained severe arm injuries when also captured by the Scars. The reason Yara and Lev are also being hunted by the Scars is because Lev defied orders and shaved his head. So upon returning with Yara and Lev at the aquarium with Owen, Mel has arrived, who is a medic and also pregnant with Owen's baby. Mel then states that they need more medical supplies, so Abby goes with Lev to the hospital. As the hospital is overrun with WLF, Abby has to sneak through while Lev waits behind behind. It is during Abby's time in the hospital that we are introduced to the Rat King. Rat King is a brutal formation of the infected. After collecting supplies, she returns to the aquarium, where Mel amputates Yara's arm. Lev is upset with the whole situation, so she sneaks out at night. She goes to the Scars Island to find forgiveness amongst the leaders and her mum. Abby takes it upon herself to go find Lev and bring her back. Owen and Mel decide to wait before going to Santa Barbara for Abby's return. It is during this time Ellie has found the aquarium, and this interaction results in Mel's and Owen's death. Ellie leaves in a panic, shaken up, and in doing so leaves her map on the floor. Abby uses this to find Ellie. So then we are back at the theatre with a confrontation between Ellie and Abby. This results in a brutal fight, with Tommy incapacitated and Jesse dead. Abby and Ellie fight this out, with Abby gaining the upper hand. At this point, Dina tries to intervene to help Ellie. However, she's brutally pummeled by Abby, with Ellie begging that Dina is pregnant. Lev then mentions letting go, so Ellie and Dina are spared. It then flashes forward to when Ella and Dina have a farm, having settled down. However, during this time it is shown that Ellie hasn't let go. She's still having nightmares, and believes getting revenge will solve this. The guilt, the anger, the frustration. Tommy turns up, saying he knows where Abby is, having been spotted in a region. Dina, angry and frustrated, voices her objection. However, Ellie then tries to sneak out at night, at which point she is caught by Dina, but still leaves. Then it cuts to Abby's playthrough with Lev. They're searching through a street which might have the whereabouts to Firefly. They find the house and are able to communicate with the Fireflies. Upon leaving the house, however, they are captured by the Rattlers. Now, the Rattlers are a heavily armed group of hostile survivors. They are quite sadistic in nature. This is demonstrated as they purposely infect their captive. So Ellie arrives on the island, and she traces her way to Abby, who is currently being held hostage in a Rattlers camp. So Ellie makes her way through the Rattlers camp and finds Lev and Abby tied to a post and left to die. Here is the final showdown between Ellie and Abby. After cutting Lev and Abby down from the post, Ellie insists they settle this once and for all. Abby, clearly emaciated and broken, refuses. However, Ellie attacks her a few times and threatens Lev, to which Abby gives in. They fight, bloodied and bruised, this time with Ellie coming out on top. It is at this point that Ellie has a flashback to her time with Joel. This is after Ellie had learned what Joel had actually done, in regards to the Fireflies in the previous game. Here we are shown in some small way Ellie forgiving Joel. It is this that allows Ellie to forgive Abby and let her go. They all escape the island, going their separate ways, Abby no longer to be seen or heard from, and Ellie returning to her former life. So now we have the story fully covered. I can tell you what I liked and disliked about it. I like the fact that you also got to play as Abby and not just Ellie. I felt this gave the user a chance to develop an emotional connection with Abby, something that was necessary given Abby's motivations, and also the fact that she was a newly introduced character. I also enjoyed how each character's playthrough mirrored one another's, as I demonstrated earlier. I felt this helped to elucidate the fact that both characters were essentially two sides of the same coin, with Abby seeking the revenge of her father and Ellie seeking the revenge for Joel. This also made it hard to hate or particularly like one character over another, something that was done intentionally. It would explain the individual motivations as opposed to being either bad or good. I felt the theme of loss was quite heavy, as with both Abby and Ellie, their desire for revenge ended up in more loss, with Abby essentially losing everyone she had originally ever known, but perhaps given a chance of redemption or a second life through Lev. I will say, however, that all the death in the game felt at points to be too much, in that it had me caring less and less for the subsidiary characters, at points taking the emotional punch out of the game. However, this was only strictly felt for Abby's side. Overall, I will say that these themes were explored well, and really demonstrated the lessons around them. Now, in terms of gameplay, there wasn't much difference from the first game, but here I didn't feel like there was much worth changing. The formula was decent, the selections of weapons were amazing. My favourite was the Molotov cocktail or any other incendiary weapon. I also thoroughly enjoyed the upgrades to the weapons, and I appreciated the workbench sequence. There were, however, points in the game where it was quite easy to get stuck when surrounded by multiple enemies. This on occasion led me to panic and press the wrong button, which in turn would result in my death. This, coupled with the human enemy's speed and accuracy of attack, made on occasion the gameplay feel clunky. I thoroughly enjoyed sneaking, something that has been done well in The Last of Us. I would often use this in large groups to take out the outer ring of enemies. This would make taking on the rest of the enemies a lot easier. In terms of the graphics and the sounds, I have to say simply outstanding. They were rich, well textured, very detailed as well, in both the environment and the character models, in particular Ellie's character model. The emotion shown on Ellie's face was very real and detailed, including the direction of her eyes. The environment had many vistas to look at, was rich and allowed for an immersive atmosphere. When swimming, it really felt like you were swimming. The rain felt real, as though you were standing under it yourself. Next is the sound. I felt the music perfectly complemented the game. especially the somber and melancholy feel of the game. I also felt Ellie playing a guitar was a nice touch. Overall, I feel like the sound, the gameplay, and the graphics really allowed for an immersive and detailed experience. In terms of replayability, I will have to say it's probably on the lower end. This is in part due to already knowing the story, but also how heavy and long the game itself is. It's not a pick up and play game. It will require you investing in the story and the characters, both in terms of time and emotions. So to surmise my experience, I felt the game explored the themes of loss, revenge and forgiveness well. I felt the character development for the main characters was good, well fleshed out. However, some of the secondary characters lacked depth. I also felt at points they were laying it on too thick, especially with loss and in particular with the Abby and Ellie fight at the end. At that point it just felt gratuitous. Anyways, the graphics were superb, the sound was superb, the gameplay was superb. So overall I'm going to give this experience an 8 out of 10. I just want to say thank you for watching the video, and if you guys are enjoying it, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.